Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. For many of us, these past 3 months have been disconcerting, disorienting. We miss friends and in some cases families and hobbies and, okay, some of us miss crowded bars. But things can be even more strange for those who experience the world differently than the majority. If you're deaf, everyone around you wearing masks can make lip reading impossible. And if you're blind, it can be hard to keep others at an arm's length and still move with confidence. Last week, I talked to Colleen Burdiss. She's the coordinator for the deaf and hard of hearing at Paraquad. And Paraquad, of course, is the St. Louis nonprofit that aims to empower people with disabilities. Colleen is herself deaf, and she spoke with me through an interpreter. I started the conversation by asking her what it's been like to communicate with others during this pandemic, at a time when work meetings are done via video call and people wear masks in stores.
Really, it's going great. All that I have to do is I pin the video so that I can have access to the interpreter that's also connected to the meeting the whole time, and that's been going great so far.
Okay, so there's an interpreter who then joins in that call, and they're helping you to be able to get what you need so that that system works for you.
Yes. And also, if I have any questions or if I want to jump into a discussion, then the interpreter can see me as well, and then they are my voice for that meeting. So I'm there and present the whole time.
Tell me how it works for you as you're seeing somebody who's wearing a mask and you're trying to communicate with them. What sort of challenges does that add?
I have been lucky here at work with social distancing. They'll socially distance and then pull their mask down a little bit so that I'm able to read their lips.
That's great. So at work, it's working good. Tell me what it's like out in the general public. I know at, say, most grocery stores these days, masks are required. Is that a problem for you?
Grocery store, no. It's not been a problem there because you go in, you get what you got to get, you pay, at the machine, sometimes self-checkout. But for example, like a home improvement store or a lighting store, a lot of people at this time are doing renovations, so that's where we have kind of been going. And those stores are where we're struggling because we'll have several questions, about which product is better or recommendations. And some people just aren't real nice about it. So I tell them, would you mind having another person help me? Because I need someone that can communicate with me better. And so I've had some success doing that.
Okay, so in those stores where you don't have to make small talk, you can just get in there, get what you need, check out, that's all working good. But those sort of interactions that we all get used to having with clerks, it sounds like that's a problem. You say there's some people that haven't been nice about
Yes.
it. Tell me a little bit about that. Do people just not understand why you need this?
I think it's more that they don't understand. Or they're protecting themselves too. I have to remember that they're protecting their health and safety. And I kind of understand that. It's been kind of hard. I've been actually avoiding going certain places where people don't know me. I tend to go to places that I frequent and people kind of know who I am. I've lived on the south side of the city for over 20 years, so I tend to go to the same places and see the same people that know who my husband and I are.
So we've heard some talk about people advocating for some sort of clear mask. Do you have any sense of whether that would be something that would help solve the problem for you?
Well, it has been working for me. I don't know about other deaf people in the community. I do know that Missouri Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, they're a state agency, and they have sent out an email last week, I believe it was, saying that they were able to they got a large donation of clear masks, and so they were able to distribute them to the whole state of Missouri, if you're a Missouri resident only. And so you're able to make an order, and so I ordered some, and we'll see how it goes.
That's great. So these are, at this point, being circulated.
Yeah, I can send you the links that you can look at those yourself, okay?
Yeah, and I would love to include that on our website for people who are curious about that. That's at stlpublicradio.org. We'll make sure to get that link up there. Um, so it sounds like this is a solution for those
It's
who.
for Missouri residents only. That's the only caveat.
Okay, so Missouri residents might be able to get their hands on these, but I imagine that's probably going to be a really small percentage of the population wearing them. What would you want people to know who are encountering somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing and they don't have access to a mask like that?
Just be patient. If a deaf person can't understand you, and maybe back up a little bit and pull your mask down so that we can understand each other while still social distancing and I can read you. Many deaf people can lip read, but understand that's not universal. So I can't speak for all deaf people's preferences.
So that might be something that would work, and that works even if people back up and get that good 6 feet or more of space in there. You're saying you can read lips at that distance.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that's great to know. So there are some solutions here. Clear masks on the way. Lip reading can work. People can step back. Anything else you'd want people to know who just want to do the right thing but just don't have the information they need to know about just how to be a good ally to people who are deaf or dealing with being hard of hearing?
Just try to understand that, a person points to their ears and shakes their head. Obviously, they're trying to indicate that they're deaf and they can't hear you. Sometimes I've noticed, like, I'm in the store kind of perusing, and then one of the staff will try to talk to me from behind, and then I don't hear them, obviously, and so they'll tap me a little bit too hard, which is shocking because they don't realize I'm deaf. Or sometimes they get very, very upset. They think that I'm not trying to pay attention to them, or they'll think that I'm making it up, that I have hearing loss. And it's like, no, I apologize. I'm deaf. Could you repeat what you were trying to say? So that's just kind of how we navigate the world.
Well, Colleen Burdiss, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
And that was Colleen Burdiss. She's the coordinator for the deaf and hard of hearing at Paraquad. And she spoke to me last week through an interpreter. Small world. That interpreter was Nicole DeVore of Paraquad. She was a guest on our show just last month. Now, Nick Silver has a perspective that is both similar and different from Colleen's. He is the owner and a massage therapist at the Human Repair Shop. He is almost completely blind. He started losing his eyesight when he was 4. And he's here today to talk about how the pandemic has affected him. So, Nick Silver, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, Nick, you're a single dad with 6 kids. I imagine this pandemic would be really complicated even if you weren't blind. How are you hanging in there?
It's been an adventure, for sure. The kids are wonderful, though. The kids are good to have, and they keep you busy, and you don't have a lot of time just to sit around and do a whole lot of nothing, even when, work is shut down. So it's been fun. It's been interesting. It's been a learning curve, outside of even the norm.
Yeah, I mean, 6 kids. You have a sense of optimism and just a sense of good spirits that shines through, and I'm sure that comes in handy with 6 to wrangle. But this coronavirus, it has changed so many things in life. I'm wondering, what has the biggest complication been for you as a blind man?
Oh, the biggest thing I would probably have to say, well, I enjoy working, so the business shutting down back in mid-March was hard. Trying to keep up with expenses and bills and whatnot. And then the biggest thing was really about e-learning with the kids. They conduct their schoolwork on Chromebooks, and the Chromebooks are not as accessible as an Apple product. In my home, we have what I refer to as an Apple orchard. I have a lot of Apple products. So accessing their schoolwork on their Chromebooks was a bit of a challenge, and I had to rely on them being honest, really, and being honest about what they were doing and what they were doing, and being able to communicate with teachers was the big thing to help get through some of it. It was still a challenge, and it wasn't easy, and on that end, it was kind of frustrating. So that would probably be the biggest thing outside of the normal things that you have to do, going to the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera.
And these Chromebooks, these are something that their district was mandating, not realizing that they're not really compatible with what you need as somebody who doesn't have sight.
Yeah, so it's found in most district use them now. It's pretty standard within academia, and it's frustrating. They I guess they're cheaper. I get that they're cheaper, and they allow a lot more flexibility when it comes to the programming side of the software, but it becomes a challenge when it comes to someone like myself, because if they did have, like, say, an Apple iPad or a MacBook Pro, I could simply go into that system, press 2 buttons, and access their entire system. So,
wow. As a Mac user myself, I'm really happy to know that they have put the technology to work so that it makes sense for you. That's really great to hear.
It's been since 1994, and Steve Jobs was kind of spearheaded that back in '94, and it's kind of been in the interface of Apple products ever since. And I'm a huge proponent of them. I use them on a daily basis, and you'll be familiar with the keys on your MacBook. If you press Command F5 on your MacBook, a program will activate called VoiceOver, and that's what I use 99% of the day in my life, and which helps me become as independent as I am today.
Wow, and that's just great to hear. And I'm sorry the Chromebooks proved such a complication. I understand one of the other really big complications for you is that you're a really good long-distance runner. And normally you do that with a guide. So how has the pandemic and people trying to stay distant, how has that affected your running?
So I actually haven't run since February 20th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But of course, as you know, it's kind of hard to socially distance while guide running. So I haven't run, but I did go ahead and I tried to invest in a gym in my basement because I also ended up going through a separation right at the beginning of the pandemic. So in my new home, I went ahead and tried to build me a small gym since I couldn't go to the gym, of course. So I went out and bought me a treadmill, and I had a personal trainer friend of mine at Freedom Fitness downtown. He was giving up a lot of equipment, so he let me buy some of that off of him. And that really came through in the thick of it when I really tried to focus on staying in shape and staying active, because I love running and it's what I do. But as I lose more and more sight, it becomes more of a challenge. And, also I played deep baseball during this time of year too, and that got canceled a couple of weeks ago. So it's been sports have, are my life, and blind sports in particular, and they've all been taken away. So.
I'm sorry. And in terms of that treadmill, I know so many runners hate using treadmills because, they like the visual variety of looking around. How does a treadmill work for you?
Oh, man, it's a challenge. So I've been trying to – I bought this treadmill, and in the gym, it's a little easier because the treadmill's in the gym. It's a little more well lit, and my basement isn't the best lit, so I can kind of use the limited vision I have to kind of focus on some other things other than what I'm doing. But in my basement, I can only really focus on the digital readout on it, the light that comes from that, to be able to focus and be able to know where I am in relation to the treadmill. I also use the safety features on the treadmill. There's a ripcord that I can use to hold on to. That if I get too far back or I get kicked off the treadmill, it will automatically stop. So those functions are nice. But as I lose more and more sight, I do try to figure out different ways that I can. And there are techniques that are out there that I've seen that have been developed, and I've also been trying to be innovative and develop other techniques in order to adapt once I do lose the remaining sight that I do have. But in the meantime, I just kind of treadmills still suck, even if you're blind.
Well, it's good to know there's something all runners can agree on. Treadmills suck. I want to just state that for the record here. And so, Nick, in our final minute here, what's one change that you would like to see to the world that would make things easier for people who are dealing with blindness?
Just like the person said before, who was deaf, patience will take you a long way when it comes to dealing with someone with a disability, because most of us are willing to educate whoever it is, whether you're familiar or unfamiliar. And so if you just exhibit a little patience and allow us to let you know what we need, the world would be a better place. We just want to be as normal as, the next people. We're parents, we're business owners. We are, we're people. We just have, do things a little differently, and, we're people. So a little patience goes a long way.
So you'd want people to show some patience, and it sounds like if they have questions or they're not sure how to accommodate you, they should just ask. You're happy to fill them in.
Just ask. I'm always willing to educate, always willing to help out to make the world more accessible, because that's the one thing that we're missing, we just need the world to be more accessible, and people more willing to open up to accessibility and what it is that we need, even if it's in the workplace, when it comes to jobs and when it comes to, everyday life, everything that you do, we want to do too.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. And Nick Silver, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.